Hello, hello, hello. This is Nervous System Mastery Part 7 with me, Lizzie Butterfly. I'm so excited to dive into this conversation with you. And today's topic, I think you're going to really enjoy. First of all, I'm expecting this is going to be a very short one. It's going to be a cracking one. It's going to be a lovely one. And it won't take that much time because actually the theme of this Nervous System Mastery series is actually going to be about saving you time and accelerating your experience so that you can get plugged into life quicker, so that you can get plugged into the relationships that truly matter, so that you can stay with the heat of turbulence and turmoil and whatever is showing up on our journey. Because the thing is, right, there's such a big framing around being regulated and feeling safe and being in the space where you can receive at perfection level, where all of the things that you really desire are coming in with ease. And often we have this sort of discombobulated experience where we sort of mistake being regulated for the thing to achieve in order to then receive. And what I love about this topic that we're going to be going into is that actually being dysregulated isn't that terrifying. Not being, safe and not being untriggered and not being always in this perfect bubble is very often the place where we actually crack through and receive so much more. And I know that I talk a lot about nervous system mastery, and I talk a lot about regulation, and I talk about all of the things that, lead us into an embodied self-awareness where we can see when we are dysregulated so that we can shift into regulation. And I know this is one of my topics. And what I also want to say and, lead forward with is that being dysregulated often is actually the best place to be, and I'll tell you why in a minute. And so if you're actually curious about this conversation, I'm going to actually open up a space for us next week on Tuesday at 8 p.m. on the 999 portal in order to release that liberation. It's called Wildly Secure. I would love to have you in there. You can find the link up in my bio or somewhere down below, wherever you're going to be watching this video. Because I feel like this is a long due conversation, and so many women are raring to go in my spaces. They're like, okay, Lizzie, give me the things. And I'm like, okay, actually there is a thing that we can bring in. And today I just want to give you a quick nugget of that. And next week we'll of course be expanding on that. But one of the themes for nervous system mastery actually is celebration and play. Because celebration and play really go hand in hand with coming back to regulation, because our nervous system is wired in such a way that when we are in survival, we're actually just preoccupied with surviving, with getting by, with, just moving into the spaces where we can receive love, we can receive life, and we can make sure that we are safe and secure. But the thing is, if we actually need to be regulated before doing a certain thing, or before receiving life, or before receiving love, then that can be just another thing on our to-do list. And what I love the most is when we move into deeper embodiment spaces, is that actually it's not that serious. Actually, it's a little bit more of lightness, and there's more joy and play and celebration in that experience. And so celebration and play and even creativity and imagination actually are these diffuser elements that we can bring into our practice. In fact, we can bring this in our everyday and daily life awareness where, well, have you been taking your self-development work a little bit too serious to such a point where you have actually lost the playfulness, you have lost the joy, you have lost the curiosity? And if so, then this conversation is definitely for you, because when you are celebrating the fact that, oh, I actually noticed I got a little triggered there. I noticed that, oh, I was pulling away here, and I noticed, well, I was going to go down the rabbit hole of needing another 3 days before I recover from this conversation, before I make a decision. And it sort of has this vibe of, it's feeling heavy and tense, and like you need to get things right? And we've talked so much about a good girl. This is a little bit of the good girl coming in, but also it's the serious adult coming in telling the child you're not allowed to play. And what I find diffuses this level of self-development tension, or trauma recovery tension, in a way where you feel like, oh my gosh, there's another wound I have to lick, there's another thing that I need to sort out before I can actually get into life, before I can get into the love and the relationship and the intimacy that I truly desire. And it's becoming somewhat of just like another chore on your daily task list. Honestly, that can't be it. And this is most likely a red flag on your journey for yourself and your own awareness. And so I just want to diffuse that and just drop the bomb right there, that actually you don't necessarily need to do all of these practices. Sometimes it's enough to just notice, oh, hey, I got a little trigger there. Interesting. Okay, can I laugh about this? Can I, bring in curiosity? And especially, can I bring in that awareness that maybe I don't need 3 days to make up my mind, and maybe I don't need 3 hours of embodiment practice before I can return back to life, and maybe I don't need to do it right here, right now. Maybe there's going to be a space and time to practice, to lean into regulation, to do my embodiment practices later, but it doesn't have to be right here, right now. And I feel like that is a little bit edgy, and I know this is often a conversation that probably most coaches will avoid, because they want you to work with them, or they, just want to be right about what they say. But what I have come to realize on my own journey too is that taking my self-development work a little less serious actually created so much spaciousness and so much freedom in my day-to-day life. And what I then noticed is that when I don't take my practices so damn serious, actually, I also came up against this edge of perfectionism where, I have to be regulated and space holding and serious all the time. That actually could brittle off. And sometimes there was a little bit of rage involved where I'm like, oh my gosh, where is that coming from? Like, why do I feel so much rage now? And it's all a part of the process, because the thing is, when you're truly living your embodied life, you're not going to be meditating 3 hours a day. You're going to be enjoying yourself 3 hours a day instead. You're not going to be, sitting in meditation. And I mean, I love meditation. Like, don't get me wrong, but not if it costs you your life. Not if it costs you your quality time in relationships. Not if it costs you actual coherent experiences with your clients and your students and everyone around you. And so when we sort of, place this perfectionistic self-development girl on, the seat of pause, and we invite that playful, curious, celebratory self in, it's so interesting, because very often this isn't about pushing these parts away. It's also about just having discernment that maybe you don't need to regulate 24 hours a day. Maybe you can be wildly dysregulated and maybe wildly disagreeing with someone and still feel the love. And I feel like that is a bit of an edgy, nuanced conversation that I love so much, and that I feel so many women are craving and don't know it's even possible. And what I have noticed too is that when I don't get so agitated about self-development work, and when I don't think that I have to do all these things right before I can finally receive, I just have so much space in my time. I have so much awareness of space in my time living life, in my relationships, and even in intimacy, where I can be wildly agitated, but actually so present. I can be even triggered, but I don't make it mean that I have to be untriggered before I can be present. I can actually hold all of it. And so I feel like when we are in this, oh, interesting, like I felt very activated with that conversation, and it made me want to like respond right away and, be good right away and be perfect and say the right thing right away. But actually, I don't have to. And it's interesting. I can just lean back and receive what's truly there and return to active listening. And I feel like this skill has actually turned me into such a phenomenal person to be with, first for myself, but also for everyone involved in my life, because I stopped making my emotional turbulence mean so much. And instead, it's like, okay, my emotions are a part of me, but they don't have to take front stage. They can also be just, on stage. I don't have to remove them off the stage, but I can still be present. And I feel like having that just sort of opened up this freedom of just being able to be myself and just being able to stay in a room where there is a lot of heat, there is a lot of high stakes, and I can just lean in and still be there. And I don't have to unplug and leave the room. And that is actually because, first of all, we have step one, noticing that it's even happening, which again is such a sign that you are so aware and you're so capable, because it does take a little bit of a little nudge up for you to even be able to do that. And secondly, immediately celebrating that. Oh my gosh, I celebrate that I actually noticed that. Oh, thank goodness I noticed this. And immediately bringing in that little sense of humor, of taking ourselves less serious, and just being connected to what's truly present, because most of the time the women and the people and everyone around us and life itself is just truly desiring to connect and link in with us. And when we build these boulders of self-development work and like having to get things right before we can actually do and receive, it's so liberating. I really love that, because I feel like we can truly have conversations at this level-headed, heart-centered, nuanced level, and not in this, I need to be perfect, I need to feel good, and I need to have it all together before I can be present. It's like, no, you can actually hold your full range emotions and you can still plug in with the conversation you're meant to have. So I hope this was helpful and you enjoyed this. I would love to hear how this landed for you and, the things that came up for you here. And yeah, have you noticed that when you take yourself less serious, that sometimes you actually accelerate your regulation? And often I have found that this has actually been true, that my body naturally regulates sadness and anger and all the other things. Of course, I get it. This is probably also partially a result of having done so much self-development work. But there's also a place where I'm like, actually, I don't know. I feel like our bodies are so intelligent and so capable. And the more I started trusting that whatever was coming up wasn't necessarily that I needed to give it my full focus, but I could have 5% of focus on what's happening within, but still remain fully plugged in with life and with my relationships and with the intimacy that I desire for people to have with me. So I wish you a wonderful day. I hope to see you in Wildly Secure if it calls you. And I will see you next week. So much love.